it stopped recording.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I think you,
Perfect.
are we all good now? Am I the host? I hope so.
Now you are.
You're not the.
Yay. Okay, thank you. Okay. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Maria.
Yeah,
Nice notes.
thank you so much. We are going to be starting with persuasive writing this week, and I'm just going to go through the basics with you and give you a few tips that I have picked up along the way when it comes to persuasive writing. The example we're going to be looking at and the question we're going to be focusing on today is, if you could change anything, what would it be? Anything in the world. I should have been more specific about that, but it is, if you could change anything in the world, what would it be? That's a very broad question.
Maria,
Yes.
do we have to write down the whole thing?
No, oh my goodness, no, you don't. You don't have to write down all the notes, but what you can do is you can write down the question, and anything I say that isn't on the document, you can go ahead and write that down as well.
Yeah. Thanks.
And also, I managed to catch the last few couple of minutes of Melvin's lesson, and you guys are doing a note-taking competition. Best notes wins, or am I wrong? Or
You're correct.
Maria,
okay.
Yeah, you are.
I love taking notes. If anybody wants some tips, I've got you. It was a joy and a very big distraction for me in high school, but yes, I love note taking. So if anybody wants any tips, let me know.
Maria,
Yes.
if you were like Loyola Tour, you already would have won by now.
Well, not to brag, but you know, I would want to win. I'm a little bit competitive like that, but oh well. Thank you for saying that. That did wondrous things for my ego. Okay.
That's the
What was
truth.
the question again?
The question is right at the top, if you can see the screen.
Maria,
Yep.
what are the tips to write neater and better?
Okay, so I will probably go through them at the end of the class, but we're going to start with the rest of the lesson right now, okay? All right, so I am not sure if you guys have started persuasive writing yet. I'm assuming not. I think this would be the week. So when it comes to persuasive writing, there are
By
a
the
couple
way,
things.
we have started.
We've started? Okay, awesome. So I'm assuming if you started, you know the point of persuasive writing then. When
We
it comes-
finished.
You're done with it. All right, well then this is just going to be tips and a few little tricks to help you out to make sure that you're on the right track as well, okay? So when it comes to persuasive writing, we obviously know that it's used to convince or persuade a reader that the writer's opinions of a topic or cause is correct. Okay, so when writing persuasive essays, we need to be very well versed in our diction. And if anybody's confused what diction means, diction is just our word choice. So why we choose certain words. This means that, and I'm sure you know if you've done it many times before, that you're going to be using much stronger language and formal language as well, okay? You want to know how to frame logical arguments, and you want to be able to create cohesive closing arguments, okay? So a part of that, when we do persuasive writing,
Maria?
yes.
What does persuasive mean?
Are you asking me what cohesive means?
Yes.
It means very well put together closing arguments. Cohesive means well put together. So it all runs smooth. All right. And if you don't know a word, can you please jot it down in your notebook and ask me maybe after I finished explaining, because if I have to keep starting and stopping my explanations, I'm going to lose my points. Okay. So like you all said, you've already done it, but I just want to go make sure that you all have a very strong structure with persuasive writing, because the persuasive text that I've been reading so far is have been quite difficult in terms of structure. A lot of people aren't really getting their structure correct
Maria.
with it. Yes?
Can you scroll up, please? I was writing that up.
Oh, no. Okay, so don't write down the notes from the page. It's just, you're better off just writing down the question in this case, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right, so as long as you have the question, you should be good.
Okay, let me
Okay.
write the
So, I just want to go through each step.
Maria,
Yes?
can you please scroll to the page so I can write down the question?
Yeah, I'll leave it on the question and I will continue. Okay,
No.
so part of arguing, and when we argue, sorry guys, just gonna put you on mute. Oh, God. Okay, so when we form our arguments are based on appeals, okay? And I'm not sure if you've learned about appeals yet, but appeals are categorized into ethos, pathos, and logos. Have you guys heard about that yet? In
Yes.
class? Yes? All right, does someone want
No.
to tell me? No, I heard a no. Okay, well, I'm gonna run through them anyways, but would someone like to raise their hand and tell me what ethos is? No? All right, cool. So ethos is an appeal to ethics, okay? It is used to convince our audience that our argument is credible, all right? Pathos is an appeal to emotion, and it is an argument that is formed on an emotional response. So obviously, if you're going to be having a very emotionally driven argument, you're going to be using emotional language. And a good way to... Give me 2 seconds, guys. Okay, and a good way to make sure you're on the right track with emotional language and using vocabulary that reflects at least a grade or two above is to start collecting vocabulary that you might see in blogs or articles or even newspaper clippings. I remember that when I was learning my emotive language, when I was learning any kind of stronger language, I would read articles and blogs and newspapers because they are forms of persuasive writing, all right? They are going to be using the structure that you want to be seeing, and they're going to have the language that you want to reflect in your own writing. Okay. I'm not sure if anybody has a vocabulary list for persuasive writing yet, but I would recommend that you start forming one now, especially in your new notebooks. Make them all pretty and start learning them. Terminology is very important when it comes to persuasive writing.
Maria?
Yes.
Is the ethos stuff on the notes that you wrote?
No. This is just, so as if you look at the notes that are here, it's more a reflection of the planning. It won't have any bigger details on persuasive writing, which is why I don't want you to write it down. It's just how I choose to brainstorm. You might choose to brainstorm very differently. So if you need me to repeat what ethos is or pathos, please let me know.
Maria,
Yeah, question.
didn't you say that we have to, if we want, we have to, you could put in your nice notebook, you can put like persuasive words?
Yes, so in your very nice new notebooks, I would start collecting vocabulary, put it on a page where you can revisit and add more to, have a little bit of space, and start learning the vocabulary that you're writing down. So when it, very quickly, ethos is an appeal to ethics, and pathos is an appeal to emotion. Okay.
What is ethics?
So ethics is our, how do I put this in? Okay, so ethics is more like our morals that kind of control our behavior. So what we consider to be right or wrong, and how what we consider to be right or wrong affects our behavior. Okay. Anyways, so anyway, moving on from emotional responses, the next thing we have is logos, which is an appeal to logic, and that's how we persuade people using reason. Okay. Advik, if you're trying to ask a question, you muted yourself halfway through.
Did you say logos like? Because isn't like logos like in like a picture or something?
Yes, so that's a logo, but logos, and I said it wrong. So logos is Logos, okay? And that is just how we persuade using reason. For the person asking if this lesson will be on YouTube tomorrow, that is a question for Melvin. I'm assuming so. Okay.
So, Maria?
Yeah, question?
So we can add rhetorical questions to our persuasives, right?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Yeah. Would someone like to tell me how much they understand about persuasive techniques or what you've been doing in class to do with persuasive techniques? All right, 5 people raised their hand, so I'll take one of them. Abia?
Yeah.
Would you like to explain to me what you've been doing in class in regards to persuasive techniques?
So in our class, we would usually do like very simple topics, but our teacher would give us like a whole like persuasive vocab, like a whole sheet.
Okay, fantastic. So you've gotten the vocabulary, but how much have you learned at Loyola in regards to your persuasive techniques? So like things like rhetorical questions, repetition, jargon, tone, facts, opinions. How much have you done in class?
To be honest, we don't do persuasive that much. We've only done persuasive once, I think, in the whole year. Most of the time, we just do narrative.
Okay, fantastic. So because this is a blitz on persuasive, because I know you guys have done it already, it's only going to be half the lesson, all right? So if you have any questions to do with persuasive, can you please save them for the first half? Because I will end up going back to narrative in the second half of today's lesson.
Is this the first half?
This would definitely be the first half of the lesson. I think that makes the most amount of sense.
Before you move on, what is the word certain topic sentences, and then it says I am what?
Stop on the vocabulary, please.
I am adamant. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
What does adamant mean?
No, I thought the D was a G.
No, it's a D. I apologize for my terrible handwriting. Okay. Anyways, all right. 6 people have raised their hands. So
Your handwriting is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to move on with persuasive writing then. And if you have any questions, can you put them in the chat and I will answer them as I'm going through my explanation. Okay, moving on. So, where was I? So you guys have done ethos, pathos, logos, and persuasive techniques you haven't really touched on, I'm assuming, but you know of them. So I can go through that with you guys today, but I think it would be better off me putting it into a list and giving it to Melvin to add to your notes that he's going to be giving all of you. All right. What about target audience? Would someone like to inform me on what they understand about target audience?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me all about it.
Like your target audience is like people who don't agree on your side. You try to target them to, you try to get them onto your side.
Okay, awesome. And why would you need a target audience for your persuasive writing? Yeah.
If there was like no target audience, like Who would read it? I guess.
Who would good. That it would be one thing. Does anyone want to expand on why we would need a target audience for our persuasive writing?
So you like tells us how to write.
Good, very good. Yes. So
To
target
support-
audience. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
To support your arguments.
Good. Yeah. Fantastic. So here are the things that target audience is going to do and why you need to focus on it in your planning stage. Okay. So when we are choosing our target audience and when we're planning it, make sure that you understand that your target audience is going to structure your arguments. It is going to determine the type of language you use. So if you have a target audience that's not of your age, so maybe you're aiming it at adults or teachers, maybe scientists, I'll give you those 3 examples. If you're aiming it at your parents, what kind of language are you more likely going to use? Do we know the type of language we would be using if we're trying to convince our parents or something?
Passionate.
Sweet.
Yes, so someone said passionate, another person said sweet. I'm not too sure, but at what we would consider that would be emotional language. Okay, so I said teachers next. In terms of teachers, what kind of language would we use to convince our teachers of something?
Modality.
Maria.
I'm sorry.
Modality.
I'm sorry. Modality.
Rule of 3.
Oh, are you saying modality or formality?
Modality.
Modality. Okay, explain that to me. And why you would use modality to convince your teacher of something.
Because you're right. Like I always do this. I certainly have to do this.
Okay, and why do we consider that modality? Because I'm under the impression that modality means a variety of different types of language. A variety of language.
Oh.
And that's okay if you mean modality in a sense where it's just one type or a particular type of language. I'd like you to explain it a little bit more. But if we're talking modality, I was under the impression that you'd be using a variety of emotional language, formal language, and your word choice would be based around caring and compassionate things, because teachers are supposed to be caring and compassionate.
Oh, what I meant was by modality, what I've learned is modality is like words not to force, but force in a better way. Like I would certainly, definitely, obviously, mostly, something like that.
Okay. All right. That's very interesting. Thank you for letting me know that, because I was under the impression it meant something else. But thank you. Okay.
Excuse me, Maria.
Yes, question.
So usually the teacher gives us persuasive like vocab that are like I strongly believe, you should, like all of those.
Yes, that's good. But how do you know which of those to use when it comes to an audience? Because we have to change our vocabulary to suit our audience. If you don't, then every single text you write is going to sound the same. The way you talk to a child, a very good example that I learned from is the way you talk to a child, the way you explain things to a child is very different to the way you would explain things to an adult from your own point of view. Okay, so the way you might explain something to someone younger to you is going to be very different to the way you explain it to somebody older than you, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to push across here is that make sure you are changing your vocabulary and you're having vocabulary that is based on your target audience. All right. Does anyone have any questions about that?
What is the target audience?
So your target audience is the same as your, your target audience is just the audience you're aiming your writing at. Okay. All right. Is there any more questions about target audience? Okay, hold on. There we go. No? All right, moving on then. All right, so like I was saying, if, sorry. Thank you to the person who muted themselves. All right, so there are some problems that will arise if we don't understand our target audience, okay? This is my next point. If you choose to aim your writing at a scientist or a teacher, make sure you understand your audience, okay? Make sure you're able to almost characterize them. So how might we, well, I'm not going to ask you how you would characterize a teacher. That might be a little bit off in the sense where everyone's going to have a different answer based on their own experiences with that teacher, and that's okay. And what I would expect you to do in GATE is reflect on your target audience based on your experiences with that target audience. Don't go choosing a target audience that you don't understand. You're not likely to get the desired response you're looking for, okay? So when we don't understand our target audience, we can provide too much or not enough detail or background information. And what that basically means is that we can provide unnecessary information. We can provide information that wouldn't necessarily be groundbreaking to the target audience.
Maria,
Yes?
what type of vocabulary do you recommend for adults?
For adults, well, I would remain with formal language and language that is used to impress. So in which case, I think it was Kanchi who mentioned modality. But in what you would want to do is you'd want to have almost like medium to high modality words when it comes to adults, okay? And that
Maria,
means, yes?
can you give us examples of some words?
Some words that you would want to use under modality or in terms of convincing an adult?
In terms of like convincing an adult or a child, like anything like that.
Okay. So when I would write, I would have, oh, actually, I think I have a couple down here.
Thank you.
So these would be more, there's a mix of like emotional language in there as well, but these would be more on the higher end, okay? So that's the kind of language I would recommend that you would use with adults, okay? Anyways, back to what I was saying. In regards to the problems that can happen if we don't have a target audience. All right, so no, I'm pretty much covered that with the target audience. Does anybody have questions about target audience? I am sorry, I am trying to blitz through this so that we can move on to narratives again. No, all right, all good then. Moving on. Okay. Is anybody still writing the vocab down? Because I'd like to move up to the top.
I'm still writing a couple of more words down.
Okay, so I'm going to start talking about the structure of our persuasive.
Maria,
That's fine. I'm not going to move it. Yeah, I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to leave it as. But would someone like to tell me how I should structure my persuasive writing introduction?
Oh, so firstly, you should have like a topic sentence. A topic sentence usually like answers the question. And then you would have 3 pieces of evidence for 1 paragraph each. And then
Okay.
you can decide if you either want a rebuttal or you don't want a rebuttal. And then you use a conclusion at the end, which basically just wraps up everything and states your points.
And so, sorry, was that the structure of the entire persuasive or was that just introduction?
The entire one.
The entire one. Okay, fantastic. So how I would do it is, I like what you said about topic sentence, but I call mine a hook. The same way you would have a hook in an essay. Oh, I don't know if you, yeah, no, never mind. Don't forget what I said about essays. A hook, which is basically to grab my audience's attention. I would provide background information on my topic. I would then define any vocabulary I felt needed. I felt my audience might not necessarily understand. So that's very funny because it kind of contradicts the whole target audience thing that I was saying before. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're using acronyms. Oh no, Yeah, no. Let's say you're using like a shorthand of certain terms, like the example I have down is the gender pay gap, and how we refer to that would be the GPG, all right? And in my explanation, so in my body paragraph, I'm going to be referring to it as GPG, but in my introduction, I will need to actually explain what GPG means, okay? That's what I mean by provide definitions. And also sometimes you might need to define concepts that you want to be talking about. Sorry. Yeah, and I would define it. And the last thing I would do is have my thesis at the bottom, which is whoever answered me before said that you would need to have 3 pieces of evidence. This is the evidence that I'm talking about. That's where I would put it in my thesis right at the end. If anybody needs me to write this structure down on the page now, let me know, because I understand I just also blitzed through that as well. Someone raised their hand and unmuted themselves and then vanished. Okay. In an exam, how you would plan it, it depends on the exam that you're sitting. If it's a high school exam and you're planning it, I tend to brainstorm. I hope everyone has the vocab down because I'm moving.
I haven't got the vocab down.
That's okay, I'll move back in a second. Oh my goodness, I will move back in a second. It's fine. So someone asked me how I would plan for a persuasive in an exam, and it does depend on the exam, but most of the time I would plan almost like this, except way messier. It would just be very unorganized. I would have my 3 points. I would then attach a persuasive technique to each of those points. I would find evidence, or on the spot think of, okay, what kind of evidence would make the most amount of sense for this point. And unfortunately, I would then begin writing, because you don't necessarily always have the luxury to sit there and plan very in detail. I hope that helped with what you were asking. Okay, moving on. I will scroll down before people have a hissy fit.
Excuse me, Maria.
Yep.
Back to like the persuasive structure of an introduction. You would also maybe like give a positive worldwide known fact about your side.
Okay, and where would you put that in your body paragraph structure? What part of your structure, where would you put that in the overall thing? Where would you put that? At the end, at the beginning?
Probably before your 3 evidence. Like probably before your 3 reasons.
Okay.
Maria,
Yes.
this is just a question, but you said halfway through we would go on to narrative.
Are we at halfway through? Oh goodness, yep, we're at halfway now. So I've kind of gotten a good grip on where I want to focus for your persuasive writing as of next week. I did want to go through a couple more things, but it sounds like you guys have already covered them in class, so it wouldn't be very much point. The main things that I would recommend, just to recap, is make sure you understand and you pick the right target audience. Next thing is start collecting a vocabulary list. You will be lost without it if you use the same word over and over again. I strongly believe in your persuasive, it's going to really reduce the readability of your text. And the final thing I will say is make sure you nail your structure for your body paragraphs. I recommend Teal. I'm not sure what structure you guys have been taught. I hope it was Teal, but if not, there is, if you want to take a screenshot of it. If you need me to explain on any of those letters, let me know now before I move on to creative.
I have a question that's not like similar about what you're talking to.
Can you scroll up?
Okay.
Yes.
Are you allowed to pick any topic?
No. The question is always given. All right, so someone asked me if is teal only 2 E's. So if you, in upper school, it should be 3 E's. If you want to only if you want to get rid of the elaborate, you can, but this is the sentence structure that, well, not the sentence structure, this is the body paragraph structure that I recommend. All right, if you want to do 2, that's up to you, but this is the one that's worked for me, and I have had the better, I guess, responses have come from the 3 E's. All right, someone asked what GTC stands for, and that's kind of funny because it has nothing to do with persuasive writing. Question, yes.
Do you have to use firstly, secondly, and thirdly in your persuasive text?
I would absolutely recommend that you stop doing that. Do not write firstly, secondly, and thirdly. Yes.
Maria,
Okay.
can you add some vocab in the chat?
Can I drop the vocab in the chat? Yep, you'd have to wait to the end so I could write it all in.
Okay. And some extra vocab, if that's all right.
Some extra vocab. One of the things, okay, so the reason that I don't want to give you more is because I actually want you to actively search for it yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Okay, someone asked, before I move on to creative, this is the last question I'll take for persuasive. What do you mean by link back? And link back just means to reflect on the question in your final sentence in the paragraph to make sure that you bring the question back in and you're answering it, okay?
Maria,
Yes, question?
can you please scroll up to the, what was this? The ethos, pathos, and logos thing? I mean the way of doing it. I just need to screenshot it.
Okay, I'll hold it there for a couple seconds. So make sure you get it because I am wanting to move on.
Maria?
Yep.
Can you go down?
Oh my God. Sorry. Yep. All right, 2 seconds. Come on.
What can you use? What can you use except firstly to replace firstly, secondly, and thirdly?
What can you use to replace firstly, secondly, and thirdly?
Can you go down? Excuse me, Maria.
Okay, can I, yeah, I'll get there in a sec. Just raise your hand if you have a question and I will unmute you as I go along. To replace firstly, secondly, and thirdly, there are 2 things you can do. You can work on your syntax. For one, don't start every sentence with I, because that's the problem with the next tip that I'm going to give you.
Maria?
What you want to, yeah, can you please raise your hand and I will come to you in a second. When I'm explaining something, the Maria's coming in is very distracting. So focus on your vocabulary. So sorry to the person who asked me the question. Actually collect sentence starters. I like to have at least 6 before I write a persuasive text. You can find them on the internet, or you can form your own with the language that you collect. So notice how it's unjustifiable, irrefutable down there on the actual page right now. Coming up with a topic sentence might be something as, it is absolutely irrefutable. The point is absolutely irrefutable, or, oh, someone is talking. Or it is unjustifiable to say the least that, etc, etc. So basically you're using your vocabulary to exchange firstly, secondly, and thirdly. All right, and if anybody wants to take a screenshot of that, please go ahead. I'm about to move on now.
Can you go down?
All right, and there are hands up, so I did say I'd unmute you as you go along. No, all right, moving on.
Maria,
Yes.
can
Ooh,
you
wrong
please
one.
mute everyone because there's a lot of background noises.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Sorry, 2 seconds. There you go.
Excuse me, Maria.
Yeah. You got to give me 2 seconds, yeah? But I can answer your question.
Sorry for interrupting a lot and asking a lot of questions.
That's okay. I would prefer that you do ask a lot of questions.
So, are these like good examples instead of firstly, secondly, thirdly? Like, can we use like in addition to that, or like moreover?
Yes, furthermore, moreover, in addition, that's okay. But my point is, I don't necessarily like firstly, secondly, and thirdly because I find that it doesn't reflect the grade level that you're at, year 5 to year 6 for GATE specifically. If you're in high school, you have a whole different ball game of topic starters. But firstly, secondly, and thirdly, they are used for year 3s and year 4 children. Year 5s and year 6s need to start coming up with topic sentences that are formed on like a vocabulary that they have learned. Okay. And yes, in addition, furthermore, moreover, that's all okay as well, because that's reflective of your grade and then some. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So last week, if you guys remember, when it came to creative writing, I made you read this story and my writing was very small and it was very difficult because I had to keep scrolling up and down. And I do apologize for that. However, today I want to run through a couple of questions. So can you please read it again? If you forgot it, that's absolutely okay. If you don't understand any of the words, don't worry about it. We are going to go through it together at the end. But this is just to let me know how much you guys have remembered from the previous classes, as well as where I need to focus my next few lessons on. It's the questions that I'll be asking are just going to be focused on, like I said, the last few lessons, okay? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to read through it. And in that time, I'm going to go through any questions in the chat. When I get to the last question in the chat, I'm going to start going through the questions in the document here.
Maria?
Yes, question.
I don't know. I think my thing is frozen.
Can you not see the PDF?
I can.
But?
Oh, okay. There we go. Finally.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
It's acting.
Hello.
Yes, question.
Yeah, I had a question. At the end, how much ideas would you give us for like what's the best way to start like narrative and persuasive? Would you start it like something like an onomatopoeia or like some figurative language, or would you start with a like emotion type?
I actually don't understand the question. Can you please repeat it to me?
So, for narrative, how would you start it? Would you start it with like a figurative language, or would you start it with like a type of emotion, like startled or something like that?
Like are you asking like your very first sentence, or just the beginning couple of sentences, what you should focus on?
The very first sentence.
All right, the very first sentence. For the people who are struggling with some of the definitions, please just write it down in your notebook. It would be easier for you, and then search it up later. So Galaxy Tab A, what I would recommend is if you said the first couple of sentences, then there are multiple ways you can start a narrative opening, but I usually start by focusing on the setting rather than an emotion. There is no right or wrong way to do that. You gave me two very good options. It's just based on what you feel you're strongest at, okay? Because you do want to start off with your best so that you can attract the marker and keep them engaged.
Yeah.
I would avoid, however, starting with onomatopoeia. Even ending my story with onomatopoeia, I was very uncomfortable with doing so.
Then why did you just end it?
So why did I end it in onomatopoeia?
Yeah.
Why did I? Because I wrote this in 25 minutes and I did not think through my conclusion. And one of the things I mentioned to you guys previously is before you start writing, make sure you have a conclusion in mind.
Maria?
Did you have a conclusion?
And did I have a conclusion now? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, now it has a conclusion.
Do you have a conclusion now?
A better one? Honestly,
Yeah,
no,
like,
I don't have a better one for it right now. I kind of left it. As soon as it was done, I left it because I'm one of those people who, after I sit a test, I just get it out of my head. I do not want to think about what I have done. But in this case, yeah, I do have a couple of ways I can improve it, but I think I leave it with onomatopoeia. It kind of helps with the cliffhanger a little bit. Okay. I'm just going to blitz through the definitions and I'm going to take questions. Macabre means death-like, like activities that are to do with like death, in a sense where it's like they're very disturbing activities. The next thing, pensive means deep in thought. Confronted just means to let me think, how do I explain that to you? Like come face to face with something, okay? Warranted means that you kind of deserve it, like if something is warranted or given to you. So you are like you're able to have it. Pursuit means to follow. Okay, and that's it for the people who ask the definitions. And I'll now take questions before I start moving down to the things I want to ask you guys.
Maria?
Yes.
This is very similar to the other text you wrote.
Oh, this is the one I wrote from last week.
Oh,
I just changed the background to white so it was easier for you guys to read. Okay, moving down. I hope everybody took a screenshot if they wanted a screenshot because it's gone now. It's forever gone. Okay, so that's the color code thing that I did at the bottom. Green is vocab, orange is genre specific vocabulary, and pink is figurative language. Great. So please, please, please answer these questions for me. If you want, you can write down the answers for this. It's like a comprehension and a creative activity all in one. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which of the following is the most appropriate narrative opening? So, which of these quote statements or, yeah, I think they're just quotes and statements. Oh, no, quote statements and questions should I add to my narrative? So, I'm not going to change anything about my narrative. I'm just going to add one of these things on top of it. And I will 100% let you guys write down the letter you think it is in the chat. If you want to get it, go ahead and do that.
There are background noises.
Yeah, I got that. Don't worry. Okay. So I'm I am seeing multiple different answers, which is exactly what I want. I'm very happy with that. But I will ask very quickly, would anyone like to tell me, like explain to me why they chose the letter they did, and I'll take hands up for that. No, nobody. Oh,
Maria,
yes.
if you want to go, can we go?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, then goodbye.
Bye. Okay. So anybody want to explain why they chose the letter they did?
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Like I chose H because like usually I see whenever I read a book, I see sentences like that, and then usually I start with a sentence like that in my stories as well.
Okay, fantastic. So what I want you to kind of form your explanation on is also the fact that the answers you guys are choosing, and no one has picked one that I'm concerned about, so well done. The answers that you guys are choosing, the quote, the statement, or the questions that you have picked is because they hold the ideas of the text. So whenever you have to pick a narrative opening, whenever you have to create a narrative opening of your own, make sure that whatever narrative opening you pick, it relates to the ideas within the text or the plot in some way, okay? All right, moving on. I know that we are almost out of time, but I am gonna go to 7 today. Okay, so the next question is, does anybody remember Chekhov's gun?
Me?
Yes.
You do?
Me. I
Awesome.
know. I do.
Okay, so I'm going to explain it very quickly because I heard 3 different answers, and that's weird. Should either be a yes or a no. So when it comes to Chekhov's gun, we know that Chekhov's gun means that any element that we talk about in our short story, our narrative, that element at the end of the short story must have purpose. An example being, if I mention a gun at the beginning of my narrative, that gun must then go off by the end of my narrative, okay? It must have purpose. Otherwise, why did I put it in there? Why did I mention something that has no purpose? It's a waste of time. That being said, there is one element in this narrative that goes against Chekhov's gun. It's unfortunate because I should know better, but in that 25 minutes, I didn't manage to achieve it. Is there anybody who knows what it is? It's quite difficult, so it's okay, but please guess. And if you need me to scroll up so you can see it, let me know. That will probably be the last question because it will take a while. Oh, and also last week, I didn't get the opportunity to go through Chekhov's gun and the extensions of Chekhov's gun. The extension of Chekhov's gun, or at least one of them, would be Chekhov's friend. I am positive I sent people notes last week, so if you didn't get them, apologies. But Chekhov's gun and Chekhov's friend, so Chekhov's friend states that if you add a character to your narrative, that character must have a wholesome ending. You can't just forget about them when it's no longer convenient to the plot. Okay, so we can't just add people in because we don't know where to take our story. Make sure that your character has a purpose. So someone actually put a point of figurative language in as an answer to Chekhov's gun leading somewhere. I think it's to do with Chekhov's gun. When I say elements, I mean like physical things like an actual gun. Okay, so like what it actually was, because I don't think anybody put the answer in, and that's okay. But if you notice at the beginning of the narrative, when the detective, oh geez, I'm gonna mute you. when the detective finally confronts the guy and he takes off running down the fire escape, he shoves a little something something into his pocket, and it's the clue. So he shoves the clue into his pocket. Now, the reason this goes against Chekhov's gun is by the end of the narrative, neither the detective nor the bad guy ever addresses the clue or what it is, and no one really gives it purpose. So that was a waste of time. I probably shouldn't have put that sentence in there, as it led nowhere, meaning it makes my story unbalanced. The purpose of my story changes because I didn't answer that one very, very important thing. What was the clue and how does it affect the story? Because once I find out what that clue is, it would give my audience some idea as to why my bad guy stole it, okay? All right, so does anybody have questions on that particular principle? Is anybody confused? Because I would be absolutely happy to explain it a different way if somebody was confused.
Maria.
Yes.
So for the Chekhov's gun.
Yep, Chekhov's gun.
Say if you're in this story, have you added like Chekhov's gun, or have you added the extension, or did you add nothing or both? Because I'm like getting a bit confused.
Okay, so Chekhov's friend, I did not incorporate Chekhov's friend into my story intentionally. Okay, Chekhov's gun, however, I did not execute in my story either. I'm trying to show you the flaws in the story and how you would have an unbalanced story. There are aspects of Chekhov's gun that are corrected. So in the sense where I mentioned the bad guy and then the bad guy is confronted at the end, that's confronted, that's done. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, which was the clue, we actually never find out what it is, which goes against Chekhov's gun's principle. Now, I don't want you to see Chekhov's gun as a tool that you can use. It's not a tool. Chekhov's gun is a principle to make sure that you're maintaining balanced stories as you write, okay? It's not something you add in or remove. It happens naturally the same way themes happen, it just occurs.
Oh, okay. And also, say if you added the extension part, like his
Chekhov's friend, yeah.
Yeah. How would you write it?
So Chekhov's friend would be, I'll give you an example. Chekhov's friend would be let's say I brought the thief in. Chekhov's friend says that if I bring in a character that has a relationship or some kind of relationship with my main character, which would mean the bad guy would have to have a relationship with my main character. He'd have to be his brother, or he'd have to be maybe his best friend. If they have a relationship, I must then give my bad guy a wholesome ending. I must give him an ending worth his time. Worth my plot, sorry. So I can't just kill him off, which I've done. You don't know who dies at the end of my story, which goes against Chekhov's friend's principle. Neither of them have a wholesome ending.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So very quickly, because someone's asked, Chekhov's gun just means that if I mention something in my story, and usually it's a physical thing, okay? I'm going to stop saying the word element because I think people are confusing it as as a tool for narrative writing. It's not. So if you mention something physical like a gun, that gun must then go off at the end of the story. So everything not everything, but if you mention something, give it purpose. Otherwise, you have an unbalanced story. The example I used was the clue. I mentioned it at the beginning and it has no end, or we do not find out what it is at the end. Okay, so in the last couple of minutes, if anybody has any unrelated questions now that have nothing to do with creative writing or persuasive writing, go ahead and shoot them through. I'm happy to take questions now because it is the end of the lesson.
Maria?
Yes.
So for like in the genre, right? How would you write it? Yeah, how would you write the Chekhov's gun if you had like a genre where it's like betrayal kind of thing? So like one person betrays the other person and the other person like that type of genre, like betrayal kind of.
Okay, fantastic. I'm starting to think that you're confused between genre and theme. What you mentioned to me is not a genre, it's a theme. Betrayal would be a theme, which is like the main idea, the moral of the story or the underlying message in a narrative. Genre is looking at things like adventure, ghost stories, folk tales, noir, mystery, crime, love stories. Yes. Okay, with that in mind, would you like to re-ask the question?
Yeah, like again? Instead of like betrayal, because that's a theme, like if you had it in horror or so like a genre which is not like noir or like a different one, how would you write it?
How would I write Chekhov's gun?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. I'm just going to mute everyone and then for a second because people are very noisy. Okay. So if I was to write it for a horror short story, that would be fun. That would be something as simple as, let's say I have an axe-wielding murderer in my short story. Okay, maybe I'll keep it PG, never mind. Horror.
A ghost.
A ghost. Okay. Be careful. Horror and ghost stories, when it comes to genre, they're two different things. Okay. So with horror is more looking at real things, like being realistic. So I'm trying to think of a physical element. It would be like if someone planned to poison someone. So let's say you mentioned a bottle of cyanide in the garage at the beginning of your story. By the end of your story, someone would have used that cyanide to get rid of a character. That was very, very dark. I wish you had chosen adventure. But does that make sense?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Quick question. What's cyanide or something like that?
Oh, goodness. It's a type of poison.
Oh, there's different types of poisons?
Yeah, there's so many. Oh, I shouldn't sound so pleased about that. But yeah, there are very many. Someone asked if you can leave. Yes, you guys, it's the end of the lesson. You definitely don't have to stick around anymore. Thank you so much for participating. Okay. If are there any other questions unrelated or related to today's lesson, I'll take them now. Bye. And I'll probably stick around for another 2 minutes.
Maria?
Yes.
Can you write the Chekhov's friend definition in the chat?
Chekhov's friend, yeah, I can definitely write that in the chat.
Maria? Bye, Maria.
Bye.
Maria?
Yes, question.
Can you use subordinative clauses in narratives?
Can I hear that one more time? I actually missed what you just said.
Subordinative clauses in narratives.
I am not hearing what you're saying. Can you say that one more time?
Subordinative clauses in narratives.
Oh, are you saying subordinative? Like in terms of like the sentence structure? Or like the clause itself?
The clause.
Yeah, you definitely can. But I would need an example of what you mean. Why do you think you can't?
I don't know. Just wanted to know.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Okay.
Excuse me, Maria.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye. Look, guys, if I already have your email from last week, don't worry, I still have it, so you won't need to send it through again.
Excuse me, Maria.
Yes, question.
Can you please send this to my mom? I'm just gonna type in the email ID in.
Yeah, but if it sent last week, it should be there. It's actually kind of disappointing that some people aren't getting it. I don't know why. That's a little bit rough. I will
Excuse
figure
me,
it out.
Maria.
But either way, Melvin will have it. Yes, question.
Can you please send it to me again?
Send you this document.
Yeah.
Did you get it last week?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Maria.
No problem. As long as I have your email, it should be good. Bye.
Hi, Maria. I've sent you my dad's email.
Thank you so much for that. And also,
Maria?
guys, remember, Melvin will be sending it as one big compiled document, so you're all good.
Excuse me, Maria.
Yes, question.
If you want to see my mom's email ID, it's just in the chat.
Yep, don't worry, I've gotten it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Bye, Maria.
Bye. All right, guys, that's it. I will catch you all next week.
Bye, Maria.
Bye.